Hey everyone, I'm Ralph.
I'm
This is
Mark.
my brother Mark. We like to talk to you about some startups and building value, just out of our experience in the last few years. And thanks for Amideast for giving us the opportunity to speak today. This is gonna be short and sweet, and well, definitely short. Hopefully sweet. All right, let's begin.
I'm currently 22. I graduated last year from the University of Rochester with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I'm currently about to graduate with a Master of Science in Technical Entrepreneurship and Management. So basically, engineering management, also from the University of Rochester. And that's kind of where my education took me. Ralph, if you want to talk where you
Yeah.
ended.
I went to Babson for 4 years, where I did entrepreneurship, and then I got a master's also from Babson in data analytics. And yeah, we both, as you see in this second picture here, um, we both are pianists, and we've been writing music together since we were kids. So that's one of our passions, and we'll get into the idea of passion and later on. But yeah, that's basically a bit about us and our backgrounds. To tell you a bit what we're gonna cover today, again, we'll keep it short and simple. Three things: why are startups unique, and why we think more people need to be involved in startups, founding them, joining them early, um, just getting more involved. A few takeaways from our many mistakes, um, many mistakes over the last 6 or so years, and some final thoughts on getting more involved in the startup scene, getting more involved in entrepreneurship in general. All right, skin in the game. Why are startups unique? So the first reason here is, and you've probably heard this before, are startups are fundamentally very risky. And whenever we try to tell our friends or anyone we're growing up with that we'd like to start our own thing, they would always say, well, that's impossible, that's out there. And that's just the way they're translating that this is a very difficult and risky thing. And that is sort of fundamental to startups. The more risk, the more impact. The less risk, the less impact. Mark, do you want to add something here, or we can sort of move on to the next one?
I think that's a good start. I want to add one small thing just
Mhm.
to, so you know a little bit more how this is going to take you. You probably heard a lot about like high risk, high reward kind of situation. Yes, but we're also trying to give you more experiences and tools to not only focus on the risk, to focus on resources that will give you that high reward, because it's not always necessary that risk is the only thing you need to worry about. There's like risk, there's working with your ideas, working with your weaknesses, figuring out a lot of things. So don't just think about it as risk reward. But yeah, that's a good start.
Um, which takes us to our second point, which is taking responsibilities for your own decisions and sharing the risk, which is fundamental, which is a fundamental difference between being a startup founder and being an employee or a consultant. Um, you know, it, and all of these things are great, and they're all being consultants is great. However, there is something that is missing in that, which is, as we see in those very funny GIFs, there's no accountability for the decisions that someone takes, and there's no responsibility. When a consultant makes a recommendation to a company or to a government, they don't share the risk, the upside, or or the downside. No matter what the recommendation that they end up giving, if it works or no, they they got paid for making the recommendation, and that's it. Which is very different than being a startup founder, because you take the risk and you take the responsibility under your own name, and you share the upside if it happens, and you also share the downside if it happens.
I see a lot of engineers talking about being consultants, and then when I ask them what do they see themselves doing, they kind of talk like they're like startup founders. So I feel like it's very important to understand the difference in what you want to do, because a lot of people think that they're like consultants, or they want to be consultants when they're describing them actually running their own show, or like being more responsible for those decisions.
Okay. There's a lot more things that we can go through, but we're choosing a few. Now moving on to some takeaways from mistakes we've personally made during during starting a business or scaling it and so on. So the first point is starting before you're ready, because you will likely never be 100% ready.
Yeah, just because like you see a lot of different people rushing, I guess, to be successful right now. And the more you go through different education, different ideation steps, you realize that the only person running after you is yourself. And we always like challenge ourselves to be successful quickly. But the truth about it, like if you realize the situations you're in and take your time, there's really no difference between being successful at like 23 than versus being like successful at like 29. Yeah.
So there's really a balance here. Start before you're ready, but also don't rush. That is key. Number 2, fall in love with the problem and not the solution. A mistake I did probably 3 times before I realized that I was doing it.
As a lot of people do, if you're too invested in what you already have and you're kind of satisfied, it prevents you from like going further and looking into other ways you can solve that problem.
Let's go. Contrary to popular belief, business classes won't make you great at business. Business classes are good. You have to sort of understand some basics in business and accounting and finance in order to run a business. But you'll need a lot of ethics to direct your vision, game theory to navigate, and technical skills to execute. Mark, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, this goes a little bit beyond education too. I haven't had anyone teach me like about direction more or less. So I can see a lot of people who go into engineering know how to execute, but they don't really know how to work well with people. And rarely do like you find someone who's like really skilled at all 3 of them. And that's where the power of working with others and working with teams and sharing your vision with others, I think, is very important.
All right. The last one, and this one is, I think, very important. And I wish someone told me this early on, because I would have started doing that in probably high school or even earlier. This is the idea of leverage, and you need leverage to build things in startup. And leverage come in all forms, like funding and hiring people and so on. And if you're interested about that concept, Naval wrote a lot about it, and you could Google and read more about this particular topic. But There's some sorts of leverage that do not require permission, and then there's sort of leverage that does require permission. For things that do require permission are things like funding. You're asking someone for money to build something, or government patents. You're asking the governments for a patent, and waiting on that, and things like this require permission, and they are leverage in building a startup, definitely. But starting off with things that do not require permission is very powerful. Things like coding and writing your own blogs and writing your own just writing online, recording podcasts and videos, being creative. All of this is leverage that does not require permission from someone else. And you could start doing that alone and from your own room, and it will give you an upside when you're building a startup, especially if you have an audience, or you have an audience through your writing or through things you've recorded. You have technical leverage through your coding or your design skills and so on. So in the beginning, at least, it's always great to focus on leverage that does not require anyone's permission. And yeah.
And you have
Mark,
like a lot of people usually have a lot to start with, and I feel like they forget that.
Yeah.
You need a lot of experience with stuff, but there's a lot that you can use to start with without spending any money.
Some final thoughts in getting involved. First of all, from wherever you are, there's a lot of communities of people building, and that should be a priority. Meeting other people that are starting businesses and that are actively trying to build value and create impact. That's very important. Every city has its own group and communities online that you can join, meetups, anything where you're getting involved with people, and that's very important. But we've added some things here that we could also share. Some books here on YouTube. These two channels are great and are filled with gold content. And there's some websites here and some articles and technical frameworks that you can follow. These are our emails below. Feel free to contact us if you want to chat, or if you are thinking of starting a business and just want a person to speak to and to bounce ideas off of, and we'd be happy to have a conversation. Lastly, thanks for Amideast for your support all the years. We appreciate it. We will never forget it. See you soon.
Thanks again.